On this episode of The Prediction Trade, Rick DiMaio, a former chief meteorologist for Fox News Chicago, joins us to talk about Kalshi's weather markets. From the daily markets to longer term forecasts, Rick shares tips, tricks, and tools for making better weather predictions.
All you false pretenders and your freaky contenders trying to be the first. In my own opinion, you are not defending. You are the worst.
Welcome back to the prediction trade. If you can trade it or bet on it, you can bet we'll talk about it. I'm Jeff Joseph, the editorial director of Luckbox magazine, and I'm joined by Mike Ruddy, an editor at Luckbox and the producer of the prediction trade. Mike, we did a little prediction trading ourselves at Arlington Racetrack a couple days ago. How'd that fare out for you?
Not too well. I mean, this is going a way back when we had Molly Jo Rosen and Noel Michaels on the show to teach us a little bit about betting on horses. And I took Molly's advice, Molly Jo's advice of just betting on the horse that speaks to you. Not in the Mr. Ed sense, but it's just the horse that is calling out to you to bet on it for whatever reason. And it didn't fare out in my favor. Didn't win a single bet, but I had a heck of a fun time doing it.
Well, it was actually a historic day to see a great park close in the Chicago area. Arlington Park's been around for a long, long time. Interestingly enough, this morning, I'm sure you saw the news that the Bears, Chicago Bears, made a bid on the park. They've been threatening a move out to the northwest suburbs for a long, long time, but whether or not that materializes is we won't know for some time. But the last couple days at Arlington Park were pretty memorable for me. I've spent a lot of time there in my youth with friends, and it was nice to go out a winner. I shared my system with you, and you saw me hit on the first couple events, first couple races out of the gate. And of course, I gave much more back on the last race than I should, but managed to walk out a winner. So I want to thank Molly Jo Rosen and Noel Michaels for some of the insight that they gave us when we had them on earlier. But we had another event that resolved itself based on a guest. We had Tasha Keratin from Canada evaluating the prospect of Trudeau's election. And it looks like she did very well. Mike, why don't you wrap that up for us? How'd she do?
Sure. So, based on the data that's current and most updated today, there were a little over 17 million ballots cast out of a total of a little over 27 million registered voters in Canada. It was about 62% of the voters that came out to vote in this election. And the Liberal Party won 47% of the electoral districts and 32.6% of the votes, which means that, as Tasha predicted, Justin Trudeau is projected to remain the Prime Minister of Canada. But unlike what everyone was sort of assuming was his ultimate goal here, fell a little bit short from securing a majority government up there.
And she also had, which were a little bit more exciting because Trudeau was favored, and she rightly called the outcome of that election. But she went a little bit deeper in looking at both the number of seats that would be taken over by both the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party, and those were bracket bets, of which, of course, there were 7 or 8 different brackets, I think, for each option, and they were about 4 or 5 seats apart. She was very specific what she thought her number was based on her firm's research. And according to my notes here, she was in the money in her plus or minus range on both of her bracketed bets. Can you give us more detail on that?
Right. Well, I remember Tasha was saying that as far as conservative seats goes, she estimated 119 plus or minus a few seats. And although the official numbers I don't think have been published, I was checking it out on the Canadian House of Commons website, and the expected date for the return of the election writs is Monday, October 11th. But that hasn't stopped prediction market traders from reading the writing on the wall, so to speak. So again, Tasha predicted 119 plus or minus a few seats for the conservatives, and on predicted already the bracket for 115 to 119 trading at 99 cents. So that's
And that was in the teens when she recommended it, so
yeah,
that's definitely a home run for Tasha, and, to be fair, we suggested taking, the brackets adjacent on either side to that, so it would probably be around 30 to 40 cents in for that, $1 return. What about on the liberal seats?
on the liberal side, she estimated 148 plus or minus 7. And on Predictit, the 155 to 159 bracket is currently trading for 95 cents.
And that was the other adjacent bracket that we suggested be included. So also, if you're taking 3 brackets, you're probably paying closer to 40 cents there for a dollar return. So Tasha was essentially 3 for 3 based on the numbers we're looking at now. They'll resolve itself in a couple days.
4 for 4 if you count her previous appearance.
That's right. Yeah, she's batting 1,000 with us. I think uh, I think that's a new record for one of our guests. So that's great to know. And now we're moving on to weather, right?
That's right. On the show today, we have an expert meteorologist who's going to be joining us. He's got a really colorful background, a lot of experience in this space, and it's really exciting to get a leg up on some of Kalshi's daily weather forecasting markets.
Well, please introduce today's guest.
Joining us on the show today is Rick DiMaio, an adjunct professor at Lewis University, Loyola University Chicago, Oakton Community College, and Columbia. Rick specializes in meteorology, aviation meteorology, TV and radio, and environmental sustainability. He's worked as a flight operations aviation meteorologist for United Airlines and as chief meteorologist for Fox News Chicago, where he was nominated for a Midwest Emmy for excellence in on air presentation and a severe weather special.
It sounds like we have the right person to teach us about betting on the weather markets. How are you, Rick? Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks, Jeff, for having me on this late August weather day in late September, right?
Yeah, it's going to be one of the questions, by the way. It's a current market on call. She is about the weather today in Chicago, so we might actually get to that hopefully. But thanks for joining us. You know, it's an interesting thing over the since Kalshi, which is a prediction market, recently came online a couple months ago. You've seen a lot of weather markets on their platform. And for our listeners who spend time in the prediction markets, predominantly focused on politics or now with Kalshi, there's more markets that are coming up. Weather has seemed to be one of the markets that's really stuck over at Kalshi. And the result of that is they are putting markets up on a regular basis. Things like, will it rain in Chicago today? What will the highest temperature in New York be? These are now markets that you can legally invest or wager or bet on. And the structure, if this is new to you, by the way, Rick, is binary. They're binary options. That's how they're traded. In
Hmm.
other words, that means they trade from 0 to a dollar. You can buy something for 30 cents and sell it for 40 cents, or you can wait for the outcome and either make lose your 30 cents or it goes up to a dollar. So that's what a binary option is. It's based on a binary outcome. And all of these markets, these weather markets, have to be created as binary outcomes. So, will it rain? That's a yes or no binary outcome answer. Will the high in Chicago be over 85 today? That's a binary outcome as well. And you can, again, take a position and hold it to fruition and accept the outcome either way, either a 0 or 100-cent outcome. Or, of course, you can trade in between that as the market allows. These shorter term markets, will it rain today? What will the weather be today? Obviously, they're day markets, so they're limited in volume. And generally on call sheet, we're seeing about 5,000 shares trade in those daily markets. So not big volume, but enough liquidity to guarantee a pretty good fill and that there's good liquidity in the market for getting out. Some of the larger, longer term weather markets on Kalshi, and we'll talk about those in a bit, they're getting thousands of shares. In fact, some of Markets like, will it be the hottest year on record? Well over 100,000 shares have traded thus far. So that's what we want to talk about today. We know nothing about how to handicap weather markets. They're fun, they're engaging, they're interesting. People don't stop and think of it, but weather's related to 20, 30% of GDP. I mean, anywhere from travel, transportation, logistics for shipping, even the entertainment industry can be dependent on travel. But of course, the commodities markets, as a floor trader years and years ago at the Chicago Mid Am market, I remember the weather feeds were right next to the grain markets, of
Right.
course, because you
Right.
rely on weather, to determine how the grain markets are going. The orange juice market, the cocoa, cotton markets, coffee markets, all were very, very weather related. But give us a little bit of history of some of your interaction with some of the business applications of forecasting weather.
Well, when I got out of school from University of Wisconsin Madison, I graduated in 1985. I got a job with United Airlines about 3 months later, and it was amazing when I walked into that flight operations center of the main office out at Elk Grove Village. Their main office is now downtown Chicago. I was blown away by how the weather group was kind of like what you were saying. Um, it was in between basically flight dispatch and system operations control. So dispatch literally handled the end product, if you want to call it binary. It was the flight plan, which basically allowed the plane to go from point A to point B safely and with enough fuel. Safely meant that it needed to have certain weather conditions to take off and land in. And if it didn't, then it was up to us, the meteorology group, to alert the dispatchers on what was safe and what was not safe based on certain weather conditions. Now, it didn't mean that we did all of that. The dispatchers, just like traders, have a pretty good understanding of weather, even if it's acquired over a long period of time. They knew their stuff. And as a degreed meteorologist, it took me a while to appreciate the fact that someone without a degree could still do the same type of decisions for their end product that you could. That was just part of the job. You had to be humble that that's how it worked.
Well, the purpose of this podcast, what we want to accomplish today, now that these weather markets are out there, they're legal, they allow for retail investors to access them easier, um, is to how to most effectively use the information that's out there. What is good information? What's timely? What isn't? So let's get specific. In a market like, what will it rain in Chicago today? What would be the best resources to go for someone to make that decision, to underwrite that probability? Where would you go first?
I just sent Mike a really great link called, well, it's from the College of DePage Weather Center. It's called weather.cod.edu. And when you click on that, and you'll see it has slash forward slash forecast, you can click on that and literally get a suite of numerical model outputs that could give you anything that you need to know from a standpoint of, the GFS, which is a large scale model that's going to take you out 10 to 15 days, or the NAM nest, which is a North American mesoscale model, which could take you out to say 84 hours, or the HER, which is the HRRR, that's a high resolution rapid refresh. That's basically a model that's looking at a much smaller grid over a much smaller map that can give you information every hour. And one of the things I'm going to do when I go into class today, I'm going to show my students how you can actually watch the cold front that's going to come down the lake between about 5 and 7 o'clock and change out temperatures from 85 degrees and 65 degrees along the lakefront in a very short period of time.
Yeah, it doesn't give politicians much excuse when they've poorly used these resources. And what I'm referring to is a couple weeks ago, New York City Mayor Bill De Blasio, who's always had his share of issues, but of course, Ida came in strong into New York, and more than 13 people were killed as a result of mass flooding, et cetera. And he claimed in a press conference that they were completely caught off guard and that it was an unprecedented rainfall. But some weather people pushed back and said, no, no, we saw this coming. It was in Philadelphia. It was on its way. New York was next, and this wasn't a surprise. It was just poor planning. So, it's a good example that there is much more sophisticated means now for making these predictions. Is
Well,
what do you
can I just
feel?
can I
Yeah,
just
please.
I'll just comment on that? I think in that situation, they were both right. The National Weather Service was right that they predicted that there was going to be, 6 to 8 inches of rain, and Bill de Blasio was right in saying that we didn't know 13 people were killed. Now, you're probably listening to me going, "What are you crazy?" But it rained, right? But the National Weather Service didn't come out and say this is going to kill 13 people. So from a messaging standpoint, and I do this all the time. From a messaging standpoint, you got to be really more explicit than ever before with forecasts by saying that if we think there's going to be 6 to 8 inches of rain, you need to now say, and this is one of the things that the National Weather Service has been pushing for over the last 5 years, and that's really from Dr. Louis Uccellini, who is the outgoing director of the National Weather Service. Is we're listening to what people are saying. And if people are saying that we didn't know this was going to happen, then maybe we need to change the end product of our forecast. So,
Yeah,
as a
take
scientist,
shelter.
yeah, well, not only that, I mean, even that's not enough. So, if we say that there's going to be 6 to 8 inches of rain, and then you meet with someone from urban planning, and then you say, what could happen with the 6 to 8 inches of rain? And they say, you mean 6 to 8 inches of rain in 2 hours? Oh my God, this is going to be terrible flooding to the point where people who illegally live in basement apartments in parts of Brooklyn and Queens, could be flooded out of their homes and killed. Then we need to include that. So now here's the thing. As a meteorologist, do you include that in your forecast? No, that's really hard stuff. But you have to be able to make that connection with emergency managers and say, look, in certain parts of certain areas, this is going to result in deadly flooding that's going to kill 10 to 20 people. And you almost have to put it that way so that the politicians then could say, wow, is it going to be that bad? We really need to ramp up the services. So in that regard of the Weather Service being right and Mayor de Blasio being right, they were both right.
Well, two things come to mind. One of them is you could be a press secretary for De Blasio, because I think that well articulated, his side. And the other would be that's really what we want to get into is how narrow can you go in forecasting? Since the over unders essentially in these markets, like what will the high exceed 85 in Chicago today? What's your understanding? What should we expect using resources like at College of DePage, et cetera, and other platforms? And I'm going to ask you for other platforms as well. But what should we generally assume with respect to the range of accuracy for forecast data? Is it going to be accurate within 1 degree, 2 degrees, using these current resources like College of DePage platform?
I think Jeff, easily we're looking at temperatures 24 hours out for a certain like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I think you're looking now, it's probably within 3 degrees easily. And 12 hours out, it's probably within about an hour. Now, here's the thing. We all know that when the temperature drops in Chicago, it can drop rapidly and usually drop a lot more rapidly than it can rise. So you look at, say, and I've seen this before because I've worked with people in the electrical grid system, and they'll actually look at like every 15 minutes, and even for at United Airlines, we would not even forecast like 4 inches at the end of the storm or snow for say an hour. They would sometimes want snow forecast every 15 minutes because if they're trying to land airplanes 110 planes an hour, the difference between say snow at 4 o'clock as opposed to 4:15 to 4:30 to 4:45 to 5 o'clock could easily be 2 inches at that point. So I think what we're seeing right now is almost probably a tenfold in how accurate forecasting these small scale numbers in short term like the next 12 to 24 hours compared to what it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, without a doubt.
So what other platforms then provide that kind of accuracy? What would you refer our traders to who are looking to get an edge in these markets that wanna know that kind of short-term data?
Oh, without a doubt. If you just go to like weather.gov, and then once you get into the weather.gov site, you click on your local National Weather Service office. And then if say I want to get, temperature data for say Evanston, you can actually click on that map. And even though it pulls up a text forecast, the National Weather Service now has what's called a gridded system, which means they don't just actually produce a forecast for a city, but they produce a forecast for a large area. And then it's like taking like the screen that's on your window. If you take that screen and you look at it, every screen has a series of horizontal and vertical lines. And where those lines meet, that would be a grid point. So what they do is they forecast for the entire window, and then the actual screen grid point grabs the data for that site and then presents it not only in a textual format, but you can click on that map, and then you'll see when you scroll up, you'll actually see an hourly weather forecast. And the hourly weather forecast, and I can send you guys a link for this just to give you just an idea of how easy it is to read. You can actually see not only temperature, dew point, wind direction, wind speed, anything that you want is on that gridded forecast. But it's amazing how good this information is, to the point where it's being used not only by people who plow snow, but also farmers as well. You can actually get this information on your phone without even paying any money for it. And I think that's one of the great things about it. The government provides this data to people, and it's for free because it's part of what's called the public domain.
All right. Well, we have the College of DuPage site and weather.gov. What about the sites like AccuWeather? I know historically the reputation for AccuWeather was that it was among the most accurate platforms. I know it was acquired by the Weather Channel, and then subsequently, I think IBM owns the Weather Channel now, if that's right. But as an insider, what's your thoughts on that AccuWeather as opposed to other platforms and other resources?
Well, I don't know what the regard is for AccuWeather, but the bottom line is they've always been able to make it seem like they're better than anybody else. Doesn't mean that they're not good, but they've been really, really good at marketing their stuff. Um, there's a forecasting outfit called BAM Weather. BAM Weather is BAMWX. They're located in Indianapolis. They're really good with their snow forecasting. And then for pilots, a lot of pilots who are learning how to fly use something called ForeFlight, FORE flight, and that's actually a platform that is supported by Jepson, and Jepson is a Boeing company. So when you start to talk about companies that have a lot of money on top, and it kind of filters down into the bottom, they've successfully understood very very easily and very quickly, if you start out really small and get people kind of latched onto your data early on, you'll take them into the future. So again, AccuWeather is great, BAM Weather is great, ForeFlight is great. Other than that, it's basically what you prefer to use and what you feel comfortable with. And again, it's all National Weather Service data. It's not like these companies create their own data, but they create their own products from that data. And again, it's all about the impact statement and how well you know your user is, how well your data is going to be used, and obviously how well people end up, telling other people how good the data is as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Rick. Once again, we have the College of DuPage, AccuWeather, BAM Weather, and ForeFlight. You've given us a lot of tools to look at for our weather forecasting. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about current markets on Kalshi and ask for your forecasts. We'll be right back.
Want a little more luck in your life? Get Luckbox, the control freak's guide to life, money, and probability. Named Best New Magazine of 2019 and 2020. Luckbox is the must read magazine of active investors, big thinkers, side hustlers, entrepreneurs, gamblers, data geeks, and risk takers. You can buy Luckbox on newsstands, but with this special offer, receive a 10-issue digital subscription absolutely free. Visit getluckbox.com/TPT to receive the award-winning Luckbox in your inbox. Don't rely on luck, get Luckbox. Learn more at getluckbox.com/TPT.
And we are back with Rick DiMaio. Rick, we were talking earlier about these new weather markets that are now available on the new prediction market that is Kalshi. They offer both short term markets and longer term markets. The short term markets that I want to chat with you about first, and so you can help us get our arms around how to best handicap and how to best approach these markets, are markets like what shows up on Call Sheet today. Will the high in Chicago be over 82 degrees on Wednesday, for example? Or will it rain in New York City on Wednesday? So these markets that involve precipitation and a over under on the high of the temperature for the day, then applied to different cities, are regular events at Call Sheet. You can look on any given day and find these opportunities. So our question to you is you've already offered some resources to us like College of DuPage and AccuWeather and BAM Weather, et cetera. But how specifically would you approach a short-term market like this? Will the high in Chicago be over 82 degrees or not?
Yeah, I think the best way to look at short term forecast is to make sure that the forecast information that you're using is reliable, has a good track record. Oftentimes, meteorologists, when we look at forecasts for like large events like hurricanes or the approach of a winter storm, it's not just looking at one or two models, but it's maybe looking at three or four numerical models, but also looking at what we call the trend of those forecast models. So what I think it's really important for people to do is if you are trying to forecast, say, the high temperature for Chicago today, on the College of DuPage site, there's a forecast model called the HRRR, the HRRR. That means high resolution rapid refresh. And what happens is that model will be updated every hour using data from the previous hour. So what it's doing is it's not only forecasting what the temperature or the precipitation is going to be 12 hours out, but it does a check on the forecast by using updated information. For instance, yesterday the high at O'Hare was 73. At Midway Airport, it was similar. At Northerly Island, which is the lakefront, it's 60. It was 69. At the National Weather Service office in Romeoville, it was 77, and at Rockford, it was 82. That's a difference of 13 degrees, and that was due to the fact that the wind was coming in off the lake. If you're forecasting on a day where the wind is basically a southwest wind, you're not going to get that much of a difference. So one of the things I think it's important for people to know is whether or not, if you are trying to hedge your bets on a forecast for a particular city, you got to know a little bit more about the climate of that city. For instance, for Chicago, anything coming in off the water is going to keep downtown cooler, inland a little bit warmer, and then far inland much warmer. But if it's a strong southwest wind, just about everybody is going to be having the same temperature. But to put it all into a nutshell, the high resolution rapid refresh, which is the HRRR, is one of the best forecast models, not only for precipitation, but for temperature and also the onset, maybe even of a landfalling hurricane. So again, this is one of those forecast models that does a really good job of looking at hour by hour weather data, particularly in the short term. It's not good beyond 24 hours. So it's all about not so much knowing how accurate a model is, but which model is going to help you forecast a specific event.
That sounds like a great tip. As I mentioned, there's a variety of longer term markets that are becoming more and more available in different prediction market platforms. And those include markets such as the accumulation of sea ice or carbon emissions or the number of hurricanes to make landfall in any given year. So let's talk about those. The longer term markets. One of the markets right now that's has about 14,000 shares traded on Kalshi says as of September 2nd, will at least one or more major hurricane make landfall in the USA. It's about even money right now. The yes is trading at 49 cents, the no is at 51 cent. How do you approach a market like this?
Yeah, I think for sure that's definitely a possibility, and part of that is because of the fact that the Gulf of Mexico and the areas of the Bay of Campeche, which is that area in the southern Gulf, are still about a degree and a half to 2 degrees above normal. The current jet stream pattern, which is way to the north of where it should be for this time of the year, will allow certain tropical storms that could develop or hurricanes that could develop to basically move about as far north as they possibly can in the Gulf of Mexico. We were talking before about this. At least two more landfalling tropical storms or hurricanes are possible anywhere across southern Florida, at least the southwest part of Florida, over the next, I would say, easily 2 to 3 weeks at this point.
So, looking at a market that's trading about 50 cents right now, a 50-50 market, the yes at 49 and the no's at 51, you anticipate additional major hurricanes, or hurricane being, according to the resolution rules, wind speeds exceeding 111 miles per hour. You expect that to occur then.
Well, that now you're talking a major hurricane. That's a Cat 3. A Cat 3 may be a little bit difficult to be a landfalling hurricane in the United States. At least a hurricane of Category 1 intensity is definitely possible. But man, when you start to get into your Cat 3s this late in the year, that's kind of pushing it at this point.
So, in that market, with the nose trading at 51 cents and recognizing we're speaking about a major hurricane exceeding 111 miles an hour, you were leaning towards the nose then at 51 cents.
Yeah, correct on that one. Yep.
Yep. All right. And if we move on to our other market, another long term market is will at least four more hurricanes, not major hurricanes, but four more hurricanes make landfall in the USA this year. Now, that market's already accelerated in terms of the amount of volume. There's 15,000 shares traded. The no's are at 90 cents. And based on your earlier statement, it sounds like you would concur with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, one of the great websites out there is Pivotal Weather. You just type in Pivotal Weather as in Pivotal weather.com, pivotalweather.com. And then if you when you click on that, it usually defaults to the precipitation type with isobars and thickness lines which represent temperature. And anybody could look at this, and it goes out to 384 hours, which is basically 2 weeks. And this is a very reliable representation of what's called the GFS model. That's the Global Forecast System. Again, that's a US model. But that actually shows one, if not two, possible storms making some sort of landfall. And again, you know, we're still talking only until the middle of October. Remember, Hurricane Sandy moved up the East Coast in the last week of October. That was October 30th. Hurricane Wilma back in 2005 actually struck southern Florida in the first week of November. So this only takes us out 2 weeks. So I would definitely go with the possibility of one, if not two storms. Again, close to four, probably out of the question. And definitely when you get into the major hurricanes, as we just discussed, that's going to be a low chance.
Okay, so the nose at trading at 90 cents with four more hurricanes 74 miles an hour or greater. You feel that no is properly priced at 90 cents right now?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And the biggest market for weather forecasters is also on Kalshi, and it is will 2021 be the hottest year on record? Almost 150,000 shares traded already.
Wow.
And again, that market seems to be heading in one direction. It's sitting at no at 96 cents. What say you?
I would agree with that. Right now, I think due to the fact that The January to July period is actually tied with 2018 as the sixth highest such temperature range in the 142-year period. We go back to about 1880. That's when our data seems to be most accurate with proxy measurements, understanding that that was really the beginning of what we referred to as anthropogenic warming, because obviously that's the time when we had the Industrial Revolution take off. But if you look at just a trend, okay, again, this is how you can make a forecast based on trends. The period of January to July ended up 1.46 Fahrenheit above the long term average. Again, that ties us with 2018. That's the sixth highest period on record. And I was actually talking about this to my students at Loyola on Monday. If you look at the area of Pacific Ocean temperatures from about the dateline to about the western part of South America, there's definitely a La Nina developing, and the La Nina is a cooling of the waters of the South Pacific. That alone doesn't go away anytime soon. So if you have something like that in mid-September, most likely that's going to keep a cap on your global temperatures. Now you got to be careful though, because the sun is now going to be going back into that area over the next couple of months, because that part of the globe now enters their summer. So even though there's below normal temperatures now, that's probably going to become a little bit more closer to normal as that sun angle begins to shine directly on that region. But even though we haven't seen the data yet compiled for the month of August, and clearly we're still in the month of September, it would really take some dramatic warming of that area to push 2021 to even third or second place at this point. So it's about a 99.9% chance that the year 2021 will not be the warmest ever, just based on the fact that that large area of cooling in the Pacific is going to most likely keep a cap on the global temperatures.
And currently priced at 96 cents. There's a little bit of room for those who want to squeeze something out there. Well, Rick, you've given us a lot of different tools to use to become amateur weather forecasters, or I suppose we can just simply call you up on if you want to give us your cell phone. Have you ever traded these markets before?
I have not. I have not. A, I probably don't have the time, and B, I don't know. I'm probably not that kind of a person that aggressively goes to any great length to make money off of weather. I like going to the track and betting on horses, but other than that, that's as far as I go with gambling.
Well, in Chicago, that opportunity just ended a couple days ago. Arlington Racetrack closed. In fact, Mike and I were there the day before closing day, just watching the end of that track. So that leaves us the weather, and that's why we had you on. So thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're going to put all the platforms and tools and resources for weather forecasting that you suggested today in the show notes so listeners can pull them up. And of course, we look forward to having you back and take a look at some new markets as they show up on Kalshi and other prediction market platforms.
Anytime I can help, guys, just let me know.
Well, Mike, where do we go from here?
Just got one reminder out here for listeners, and that's if you haven't already checked out Luckbox Magazine's crypto issue, go to getluckbox.com/TPT and you can check out the entire issue digitally for free. I know there's a lot of overlap between prediction market traders and investors in cryptocurrency, and there's a lot of really useful resources and interviews and insight in this issue. So if you are someone who likes to trade cryptocurrencies, this is certainly an issue for you. That's getluckbox.com/TPT.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And that's all we have for this episode of the Prediction Trade. If you like what you heard, tell your friends about us and make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And check out thepredictiontrade.com to sign up for our newsletter, find us on social media, or to send us a message. And you could also find the Prediction Trade in print in each issue of Luckbox magazine. As Mike just mentioned, go to getluckbox.com/TPT to read the latest issue of Luckbox digitally for free. So thank you for joining us once again. I'm Jeff Joseph.
And I'm Mike Reddy.
And remember to always wager responsibly believe in math, master your trade, and join us next time on the Prediction Trade.